Let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer, where we are diving headfirst into a wildly fascinating 10-year window of declassified space anomalies. We're going to explore exactly what astronauts were seeing and hearing while orbiting the Earth and the Moon. And we're doing this using strictly official NASA source media, declassified memos, and actual flight transcripts. From some very early policy debates all the way to highly detailed photographic and audio evidence, this single decade really laid the groundwork for how we view unexplained phenomena out in the blackness of space. Here is our flight plan for this explainer. First up, a 1963 policy memo. Second, the 1965 Gemini 7 audio sighting. Third, the 1969 Apollo 12 photo anomalies. Fourth, the 1972 Apollo 17 bright fragments. And finally, the 1973 Skylab visual sightings. So looking at this timeline, what makes this progression so compelling is how the evidence actually evolves. We start with purely theoretical, earthbound policy discussions, right? But then that rapidly escalates into undeniable auditory and photographic evidence gathered firsthand by astronauts during their missions. Part 1. 1963 Space Alien Policy Memo. Okay, to truly understand the context of what these astronauts were reporting, we have to peek behind closed doors first. Before humans were really venturing far into space, policymakers were already very quietly considering the unknown. In a memo dated July 18, 1963, a staff member for the National Aeronautics and Space Council named Maxwell W. Hunter II wrote this really extensive piece. He was outlining his thoughts on what he formally called the space alien race question. And you have to remember, this wasn't some fringe sci-fi discussion. This was an internal executive office memorandum directly addressed to the Department of State. Inside that memo, Hunter is theorizing about the origins of life and the mechanics of interstellar travel. He completely acknowledges that the scientific consensus at the time thought the chances of finding alien intelligence were virtually zero. But then he boldly states the probability that we will find an alien intelligence perhaps should not be completely ignored. It's just a brilliant piece of history, proving that high-level policy discussions about these exact possibilities were already happening just as the space race was really heating up. Part 2. 1965 Gemini 7 audio sighting. Fast forward 2 years to 1965, and that theory abruptly evolves into an actual in-orbit encounter. In the official public affairs transcript for the Gemini 7 flight, astronaut Frank Borman reports something highly unusual back to Mission Control in Houston. If you listen to the audio from this mission, there's this incredibly tense back and forth as the crews spot something out there that they simply can't identify. Coming right over the radio, Borman clearly states, "We have a bogey at 10 o'clock high." Now, using that very specific military aviation term for an unidentified aircraft immediately grabbed Houston's attention. It prompted Mission Control to fire back, basically asking if Borman was just looking at their own drifting booster rocket or if he was calling in an actual sighting. Borman's response is absolutely crystal clear. He tells Houston, "We also have the booster in sight." He's clarifying that yes, they see their own booster, but they are also looking at this separate, entirely distinct object. He goes on to note that there are hundreds of little particles going by to the left out about 3 to 4 miles. Then his fellow astronaut Jim Lovell jumps on the comms to meticulously describe exactly what they're looking at. He places the object right at his 2 o'clock position, calling it a brilliant body in the sun against a black background. He adds that there are particles on or around it, and he uniquely describes the object's motion as slowly tumbling. So this wasn't just a fleeting flash of light, it was a physical, tumbling object with very distinct visual characteristics, being tracked by highly trained observers. Part 3. 1969 Apollo 12 photo anomalies. Now, as spaceflight technology improved, these anomalies evolved from audio reports into undeniable photographic evidence. Take an original Apollo 12 photograph taken right on the lunar surface. If you zoom into the pitch-black sky just above the moon's horizon, it reveals this incredibly distinct vertical blue streak anomaly. It is completely isolated against the stark blackness of space. And before you ask, no, it's not a lens flare. The sun's angle and the shadows cast by the astronauts on the ground simply do not align with this bright, textured blue streak hovering up in the sky. And the wild thing is, this blue streak wasn't just a one-off event. Other frames from Apollo 12 captured a whole variety of phenomena. One image shows a distant, multicolored red and white light anomaly suspended in the absolute darkness. Another set of images features a whole cluster of various unexplained blue lights and streaks captured across multiple frames during the mission. The sheer volume and variety of these distinct light anomalies caught on official NASA film is honestly pretty remarkable. Part 4. 1972, Apollo 17, Bright Fragments. Moving forward to 1972, the astronauts are now experiencing and documenting visual and descriptive anomalies at the exact same time. According to the Apollo 17 transcripts, right after a maneuver, the crew found themselves suddenly surrounded by a massive field of debris. One astronaut describes it as looking literally like the 4th of July right out their window. They noted very bright particles drifting by, specifically calling them very jagged angular fragments that are tumbling. Houston naturally suggested it might just be peeling paint or ice chunks off the booster, but the crew pushed back, insisting these were large, intensely bright, and highly angular fragments. And accompanying those frantic verbal reports is some very striking photographic evidence. Out in the distance, set against the pitch-black sky over the gray lunar surface, there's a visual anomaly showing 3 distinct, bright blue dots. They are hovering right together in this tight triangular cluster. Once again, the visual data matches the ongoing theme of these bright, totally unexplained phenomena closely shadowing our lunar missions.
Part 5, 1973, Skylab Visual Sightings.
Finally, we reach 1973. The Apollo program had wrapped up, and NASA moved on to Skylab, which was America's first space station. Inside the official Skylab 1 and 2 technical crew debriefing documents, the astronauts provided these highly detailed accounts of a prolonged visual sighting. They tracked an object they simply referred to as a satellite, even though they had absolutely no idea whose it was or what it was doing up there. The crew documented some incredibly specific characteristics for this thing. They tracked a bright, reddish object continuously for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. They could actually see it rotating, and they calculated a precise 10-second rotation period based on how its brightness was varying. But here is the most surprising part. It held its relative position right outside their wardroom window. That means it was actively maintaining an orbit very, very similar to Skylab's own orbit. In the debrief, astronaut Jack Lausma stated, "It never did take the shape of an object, but it was always brighter than any other star or planet in the night sky. It was much brighter." The crew literally just sat there and watched it until it eventually passed into the Earth's shadow. As they noted in the official logs, what this object actually was and how it happened to end up in such a suspiciously similar orbit to their own multi-billion-dollar space station, well, that was never explained to them. So, wrap your head around this. When we stack all of these declassified sources together, a truly remarkable picture starts to emerge. We see a direct, chronological progression. It starts from those early theoretical policy memos worrying about alien intelligence. Then it evolves into frantic audio calls about tumbling bogies, capturing vivid blue streaks on lunar film, all the way up to a 10-minute visual tracking of a glowing red object matching pace with the space station. Looking back at this fascinating decade-long trail of official visual and auditory evidence, what do you make of it?